Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
I don't know about you, but I had a really busy Thursday, work-wise. Plenty to do. Not a lot of opportunity to even leave the house to go run errands. I got in a 45-minute workout. Yesterday was a really busy day for me. Yesterday was also a really busy day for those who are dissatisfied with the direction this country has taken, and they took to the streets. Despite it being a weekday, a workday, a day that folks have plenty other things to be doing, this became a priority for thousands across the country. First, from WXIA-TV 11 Alive in Atlanta.
From worker rights rallies to marches for social justice, activists taking over the lawn in front of the state capitol today, joining thousands of people across the country taking part in May Day demonstrations. Marchers said that their message is about fighting back against President Donald Trump's policies targeting immigrants, federal workers, and diversity programs.
Now from WSBE-TV Channel 2 here in Atlanta.
Protesters in more than 1,000 cities and towns across the country and in other parts of the world hit the streets today to protest the Trump administration's plans. They're upset about cutting education funding, mass deportations, and what they see as a rollback of workers' rights. Tonight, we have live Team 2 coverage of these protests, starting with Channel 2's Courtney Francisco live in downtown Atlanta. Courtney, that's where hundreds of people marched today.
Right, and the demonstration just wrapped up. The last stop was here at City Hall, Linda, but I want to show you what it was like as we marched through downtown Atlanta. This crowd walked around more than a mile on Ted Turner, past Immigration Customs Enforcement headquarters. They're criticizing Trump's policy on immigrant workers and the price of goods. Before that, they walked past OSHA, Occupational Safety Health Administration headquarters in Atlanta, criticizing wage inequity. They started at Liberty Plaza next to the state capitol, sending a message to lawmakers that they want to see a shift in policy. So I asked if they think politicians took notice.
I think so. I'm not counting too much on Trump and his cronies, but I do think that our congresspeople, our politicians, there is a point where they're going to have to pay attention to their voters and their constituents.
Now, the crowd gathered at 3 this afternoon at Liberty Plaza and then wrapped up here just before 6 o'clock. So that's about 3 hours marching around downtown, and police did help escort them through the streets. There was no safety issues, but there were some traffic delays for drivers and those trying to get home from work. But all should be clear in the next couple of minutes. Reporting live downtown Atlanta, Courtney Francisco, Channel 2 Action News.
Courtney, thank you very much for that. Now continuing our live Team 2 coverage with our Richard Elliott. Richard is live in downtown Atlanta. Richard, some attorneys say the Trump administration is now disobeying federal court orders.
Well,
Yeah, and today some Georgia attorneys worry that Trump is defying federal court orders and the U.S. Constitution, while an attorney for the Georgia GOP believes the Biden administration weaponized the justice system against Donald Trump.
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
About 50 Georgia attorneys retook their oaths to defend the constitutions of the United States and the state of Georgia inside Atlanta City Hall Thursday. They said they did that because they're worried the Trump administration is actively engaged in judicial interference and disobeying direct orders from federal courts. And they worry the administration is threatening and punishing law firms who argue against it. Yeah. Beverly Martin is a retired judge who previously sat on Atlanta's 11th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Our founders envisioned a nation of laws premised on 3 separate and co-equal branches of government.
Andrea Young is an attorney and president of the Georgia ACLU. She says her organization will continue to fight the Trump administration in court.
We are committed to continue to defend our democracy against the chaos, the cruelty, and the constitutional violations that we see happening.
It probably does not surprise you to know that I see this as an incredibly, really just an exercise in hypocrisy.
Georgia GOP Chair Josh McCoon is an attorney, too. He believes the Biden administration weaponized the judicial system against Donald Trump, leading to his indictment on election interference charges in Fulton County.
So it's a little hard for me to stomach this idea that the Trump administration is somehow unfairly targeting lawyers.
Nobody made Donald Trump commit crimes, though.
Now, pending a ruling from the Georgia Supreme Court, that criminal case against Donald Trump and the other election defendants remains open. We're live in downtown Atlanta. Richard Elliott, Channel 2 Action News.
Josh McCoon actually had more to say. He was quoted, I believe, also from WSB Television. These rent-a mobs are not fooling anyone. President Trump is delivering for the American people, and they are responding to his message. By all means, the let them eat cake response is pitch perfect. In fact, I think to help deliver that everything is fine, these people are protesting for nothing mentality, Patricia Murphy, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, wrote an op-ed that is formed as if it were a memorandum to Georgia voters, literally saying, memorandum to Georgia voters from the Republican Department of Everything's Fine. How it's going so far. Priority urgent, she writes. It's come to our attention that some of you may be feeling anxious, or in the words of President Donald Trump, yippee, at the 100-day mark of the second Trump administration, Murphy writes. We in the Department of Everything's Fine are here to tell you that, yes, everything's fine. In fact, it's better than fine, she writes. It's possible that you've noticed that your 401k has been feeling yippee too, or that the economy contracted by 0.3% this quarter, or that GM reported this week it will have to pay $5 billion in Trump tariffs this year, and those 25% tariffs are going to show up in that pickup truck you thought you were going to buy. Maybe you also read that some of Georgia business owners are so worried about the tariffs they can't sleep, or that Carter's Children's Shop warned this week that back-to-school shopping will be more expensive because of all of the new levies. But it's important that you know that everything's fine. Maybe you are a small business owner, she writes, trying to sell overseas, or a federal employee worried about your job, or you're a judge or a lawyer watching Trump defy court orders, or anyone else saving for retirement, a first home, or your child's education, worried about recent executive orders from the president or upcoming moves from Congress. None of that should bother you, Patricia Murphy writes, though, because as President Trump said during his cabinet meeting this week, all is going according to plan. Even supply chain disruptions from the tariffs, no big deal, she writes. Maybe the children have 2 toys instead of 30, he said, and shrugged. Patricia Murphy continues. It's true that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's latest poll showed that 55% of registered Georgia voters disapprove of the job the president is doing, and that a majority also disapprove of the way he is handling the economy, tariffs, immigration, and even the work of our colleagues in the Department of Government Efficiency Initiative. Nearly 60% also said they're planning to cut back on spending. But the real truth behind those numbers is that everybody in Georgia is very happy, actually. If you don't believe us, please see the following statements from your Republican elected leaders to prove that you are, in fact, doing amazing. On day 100, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Rome posted to social media, "My constituents couldn't be happier with President Donald Trump!" Due to Trump's strong border policies and bringing in investments to America, our people are safe and our economy is stronger, she wrote. Congressman Mike Collins, a Republican from Jackson, Georgia, said it's been, quote, the most consequential first 100 days in any American presidency. The border crisis is solved. Domestic manufacturing is back. America is respected again. DEI is dead, 100 down, and 1362 to go. Buddy Carter from St. Simon's Island called the year so far, quote, 100 days of putting America first, while Athens Representative Andrew Clyde declared them, quote, the first 100 days of America's golden age. Patricia Murphy continues, by now you should feel extremely confident and relaxed. And if you don't, we encourage you to watch the president's cabinet meeting this week, when each cabinet secretary sat behind their own Gulf of America baseball cap and told the president that he is doing even better than the rest of us. Mr. President,
your first 100 days has far exceeded that of any other presidency in this country, ever. Ever. Never seen anything like it. Thank you,
said Attorney General Pam Bondi. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said that Trump was, quote, not just courageous, you're actually fearless. And Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said to Trump, Mr. President, I want to thank you for your vision, for your leadership, and for giving me the busiest 100 days of my life. Other secretaries had similar frank assessments. Patricia Murphy continues, so do not pay attention to conservative commentator Ann Coulter's question, would it be possible to have a cabinet meeting without the Kim Jong-il style tributes? Because no, it would not be possible. To summarize, Murphy writes, things are going incredibly awesome on all levels under President Trump. And if you don't think so, you must hate America. Also, if anything is going wrong, it is probably Joe Biden's fault. As Trump pointed out, when a reporter asked him Wednesday about the economy's lack of growth and the stock market's wild swings, he's only been here 100 days. This is Biden's stock market, the president said, and you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden's too. How long is that going to work, my man? Anyway, Murphy continues, please keep that in mind going forward. Before signing off, and in the spirit of bipartisanship, we want to note that dismissing signs of trouble and telling Americans they are doing great, even when they don't feel that way, is the exact same strategy that Democrats just used in 2024. When you told them for years that you were worried about the economy, the direction of the country, and especially the health of President Biden, they ignored your unambiguous feedback. Today, we are ignoring your unambiguous feedback too. So, Georgia, pay no attention to the polls, the markets, the tariffs, your wallet, your 401k, your anxieties, or any other negative Nellies trying to bring you down. Because President Trump is here now. And as we will be here to remind you for the next 1,359 days, everything is fine. Attorney General Pam Bondi, by the way, making one hell of a claim about fentanyl seizures at the border and how many American lives have been saved. Remember, our population is around 330 million, and she said,
Your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives.
My favorite part is how she turned to the side to look at cameras to make an absolutely bonkers claim about 258 million lives being saved in a nation of 330 million. So yeah, I'm quite okay with Georgia GOP Chair Josh McCoon taking the, let them protest, it means nothing. It's a rent a mob. While the effects of tariffs on the cost of goods and services, are you ready for this, Americans? Hasn't even really hit your products yet. While the effects of the on-again, off-again nature of the president's call for tariffs has affected your 401k already. Josh McCoon can take that attitude all he wants. Please, for the next 18 months, sir, take that attitude. We'll see you in November 2026. Back after this, The Ron Show, America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Speaking of 2026, friend of the show, Jake Bookman, wrote a piece that I hope will sort of allay some fears, but I mean, still, a threat is a threat, and you've got to take a threat seriously. And the threat of Marjorie Taylor Greene running for a statewide office, whether it be to represent this state in the U.S. Senate, or she's made some comments about potentially running for governor. Jay Bookman filed a piece in the Georgia Recorder that I think should be taken very seriously. What she's able to do in the corner of the state that she resides in, that she moved to, chose this district, literally said, I need to go somewhere other than Metro Atlanta where I can succeed electorally. So she picked a gerrymandered district that heavily favors any Republican candidate, moved there and ran for office and has set up shop and has run roughshod. By the way, doing almost nothing for her district. Like you don't see her showing up at ribbon cuttings or taking credit for, because for the last 4 years, it was President Joe Biden that invested into infrastructure and invested into green energy initiatives. Marjorie Taylor Greene did nothing to try and bring any of that to her district, and any of it that comes to her district, she gets no credit for because she didn't vote for. She's done essentially nothing but become the face of MAGA resistance in its most pure and vile and uncouth way. The fact that she had folks dragged out of her town hall, tased even by Ackworth police, arrested, held in detention, while she has interrupted, on at least 3 occasions that I can think of, presidential addresses to Congress. Like a rabid howler monkey, is just rich. Anyway, Jay Bookman filed a piece that sort of, as I've said over the last couple of days, exemplifies where I think her odds are outside of the safe confines of her gerrymandered Northwest Georgia district. Snowball's chance in hell. Let her run for statewide office. I'll dive into that piece. We'll meander through that and read it all together, or I'll put it in the show notes if you'd like to read it yourself at ronshowatl.com. Tomorrow, the Georgia Democratic Party will elect its new chair. Representative Nikema Williams, my congresswoman, had been chair of the party for a few years now. And that in and of itself, we've decided as Democrats in Georgia, is a full-time job, something that, a position that whoever has it, it should be their only job. A lot of that at the urging of Senator Jon Ossoff, who, I don't know, has a vested interest in how the party runs itself in, say, 2026 when he's up for re-election. So a little bit of maneuvering and arm twisting behind the scenes from what I hear, and Representative Williams stepped down. We've had an interim chair, and tomorrow, like the conclave in Rome, right? The state party leadership will gather and go through a few rounds of voting to determine who the next chair of the Georgia Democratic Party will be. I haven't really weighed in on who I think that should be. I've actually spent some time just trying to get to know all of the candidates. I did mention yesterday I have my misgivings about former Augusta Mayor Hardy Davis, ethics violation, $17,000 in fines, election finance issues, questions, concerns, headlines about his estranged wife claiming infidelity. I don't need that. Georgia Democrats don't need that. Not as chair of our party. Sorry. And the thing is, like, I listened to him speak at the Toccoa forum, and I thought, like, man, what he says actually makes a lot of sense. It's just a shame that it comes with all the sideshow. So for me, it can't be him. Nabila Islam Parks, also running for DPG chair. I've had her on this show. Sharp woman. We would be fine under the tutelage of Nabila Islam Parks. Wendy Davis, former Rome City Councilwoman. She, I believe, ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene in that district. And again, it's like, Wendy has a lot of contacts within the state party. She's been at this quite a while. She knows where the bones are buried. I think we'd be fine. You have Jay Jones. You have Elena Sanders. You have Nikita Hemingway. Did I mention her? I tend to think, however, this is just looking at who's racked up the endorsements, and the endorsements are by and large the movers and shakers seem to all be, including, I think, Senator Jon Ossoff's office, his team. I think they're behind Charlie Bailey. I think Charlie Bailey's probably the guy. When you look at the endorsements, my gosh. You have former Governor Roy Barnes. That's not nothing. You have Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin, the last Democrat to run against Marjorie Taylor Greene in that district. You have Sean Harris endorsing Charlie Bailey as well. Tyreek Jackson, president of the Young Democrats of Atlanta. Congressman Hank Johnson endorsing Charlie Bailey. Bobby Kahn, the former state party chair, has endorsed Charlie Bailey. State Representative, friend of the show, Rua Roman has endorsed Charlie Bailey. Congresswoman Lucy McBath has endorsed Charlie Bailey. This is a broad spectrum of Georgia Democrats. Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis has endorsed Charlie Bailey. And I don't know how much of this is just, I predict he's going to win, so I'm going to pile. I don't know how much of that there is, but that is a broad spectrum. Progressive, moderate, establishment. It's a broad spectrum of Georgia Democrat that has lined up behind the candidacy of Charlie Bailey, who had run for lieutenant governor before in the state of Georgia. I expect that after a couple, 3, maybe 4 rounds of voting, just to make sure that we get the clear majority of those who will be voting tomorrow morning at state party headquarters, I think coming out of that, we should expect to hear that Charlie Bailey will be the new Democratic Party of Georgia chair. Give you a little behind the scenes, a little show note, actually. I'm going to be traveling Sunday night through Tuesday. I won't be back here in Atlanta until Wednesday morning, Tuesday night. There may or may not be shows, live shows or day of shows Monday or Tuesday. Still deciding whether or not I want to carry the equipment with me or not. But we are actually working on lining up an interview with the winner of the election for Democratic Party of Georgia chair. Hopefully we'll have that. If I do manage to score that on Saturday, that will be what you get Monday morning. It's The Ron Show, America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn and wherever you podcast.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
I mentioned earlier, Jay Bookman, friend of the show, opinion writer at the Georgia Recorder, filed this. MTG's Act may play in her district, but a statewide race is a fool's mission. That is the headline. He writes, Brian Kemp is not a large man, but he is the big dog. The scramble doesn't start until the two-term governor says it starts, he writes. But once Kemp makes up his mind whether to run for the U.S. Senate next year, he will set off a mad dash by politicians of both parties, hoping to move up a notch or two in Georgia's political hierarchy. U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is making noises like she might be one of them, he writes. I don't mean to scare you, Bookman says. Greene is one of those politicians who can't be beaten within her district, but who can't win outside of that district. She can't win a statewide general election in Georgia. She probably can't win a statewide primary either. Look at the numbers, he writes. In the 2024 election cycle, Donald Trump carried Greene's North Georgia district by 37 percentage points, while Greene won it by 29. Bookman concedes if you underperform Trump by 8 points in your own district, if a good number of your own voters are willing to embrace Trump but find you too bizarre, then trying to win statewide is a fool's mission, he writes. Which by definition means she might try anyway. On Saturday, standing before a banner reading, Save America, Stop Communism, my God, Greene told an annual convention of her home district Republicans that, quote, the Democrat Party is overcome with evil. And she urged them to help the GOP take back the U.S. Senate seat won 5 years ago by Jon Ossoff. It was never theirs to begin with, she said, to cheers and applause. That was stolen. That Senate seat was stolen, and so was Warnock's Senate seat. Stolen. Just like Donald Trump's election was stolen in 2020. It's always tempting and often unfair to use a party's more extreme personalities to characterize the party as a whole, Bookman writes. But I'm sorry, in the Donald Trump era, no, I don't think it's unfair in this case. Tempting? Easy? Yes. Unfair? Right now? No. Sorry, that cabal has been taken over. That is the tone, the tenor, the face of the GOP. Back to Bookman. Republicans do it, and so do Democrats. But in listening to Greene's comments, I was struck by the fact that in the second Trump administration, Greene is closer in tone and content to the Republican mainstream than she was in her first term. She has gone from outlier to MAGA mainstream, and it isn't Greene that has moderated her attitude. The second Trump regime has moved much closer to Greene's views of the world. Consider the role of free trade, Bookman writes. In her remarks, Greene offered a pretty accurate description of Georgia and its current importance in the global economy, saying, hold on while I work on her voice. Georgia is the economic hub of the Southeast. No, I'm not going to do this. She says, Georgia has the third largest port in America. That is incredible control of shipping and trade. Georgia has the busiest airport in the world, in the city of Atlanta. Georgia has 2 corridors, I-75 and I-85, that run through our state, branching out into our neighboring states. That's more trade. That's interstate. That's commerce. She, by the way, has I-20 running through her district. I should have mentioned it. Should he? Should she? I'm thinking. Anyway. That's more trade, that's interstate, that's commerce. She says, Georgia is the economic hub of the Southeast, And the Democrats want to take control of it, just like they took control of California years ago, and just like they control New York. By the way, demonize California all you want. California is now the 4th largest economy in the world. Bookman continues, the economy that she describes is the investment of generations, investment that has made Georgia more productive and prosperous than most of its southern neighbors. Everything she cites, our ports, our highways, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, are publicly funded infrastructure. But as we're about to be reminded in the next few months, Bookman writes, a Georgia economy built on logistics and global commerce is also much more vulnerable to the disruptive, chaotic, and undisciplined trade policies of the Trump regime. Bookman's wrote about this plenty in the last few months, by the way, and we've covered it on this show. In fact, it's probably not accurate to describe them as policies at all. He writes, they seem to be more the product of urges and resentments than of rational planning. That's certainly how Greene's economic theory comes across. He quotes her, I'm tired of our state leaders importing foreign countries' companies to our state, claiming job creation. You want to know the reality? That big old battery plant in Cartersville? Here's the reality. By the way, in her district, here's the reality. They're bringing in something like 200 to 300 families from Korea to work in that battery plant, she says. They didn't create jobs in Georgia by doing this. They're importing jobs into Georgia. Even if that were true, say it were true, the 200, 300 families that would be moving into the state would have an economic impact, would they not, on the state? Like, they're going to spend money in the state because they're going to live in the state. They're going to buy property and products and go to restaurants and businesses. That's economic impact. Anyway, Bookman continues. That big old battery plant is a joint venture between 2 Korean firms expected to employ thousands to build enough electric batteries to power 300,000 electric vehicles a year. At the Indeed job search site, the plant is advertising engineering jobs paying up to $120,000 a year, shift supervisors making $34 an hour, jobs that provide 401ks and health insurance, with production slated to begin later this year. But according to Greene, quote, that's not what Georgia needs to be doing. They're not helping Georgia be Georgia. It's changing Georgia. Read into that what you will. And we've all witnessed this for years now, starting with the Hollywood tax credits. What she's saying is, she doesn't like the unwhitening, the unconservativing of Georgia by the allure of jobs, bringing folks who aren't from here, which is ironic. This is me talking, not Jay Bookman. Ironic because she carpetbagged her ass over to this district that she now resides in because she couldn't win an election where she came from, Metro Atlanta. Bookman continues by quoting Greene, I do not want to associate with those people. I don't like their values. She's talking about the Hollywood folks. I don't like their award ceremonies. I don't want them living in our state and taking advantage of our tax dollars. We need to be supporting Georgia-born and bred companies in our state. Georgia has been invaded, she asserts. Georgia has been watered down. Georgia is on the verge of being this is white nationalism. It's hard not to see that that's exactly what she's saying. Outsiders. I mean, this is like post-Civil War Jim Crow carpetbaggers, Yankees. As Greene noted, this is the final paragraph for Jay Bookman's piece, that's the Georgia First version of the America First approach taken by Trump. And both versions are economically illiterate and irrational. The damage that they could potentially do, the damage that has already been done, will undo the work of generations and require generations to repair. I don't know if you heard in that piece, by the way, Jay Bookman is sort of defending the Brian Kemp era, the Nathan Deal era of investment in bringing jobs to the state of Georgia, investment into the state of Georgia. We can argue about whether or not giving tax breaks to companies who, come here and do as Greene does, asserts, they're bringing in outsiders, they're not really helping. We could sit here and nitpick about that. We could sit here and talk about the impact that these businesses have on local economies and infrastructure without paying their fair share. We could sit here and have that conversation, but Jay Bookman is essentially pointing out that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to run against the Brian Kemp brand of GOP that, by the way, is more popular than the Trump brand. And that's why she will not win a statewide race. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio. Okay, final few minutes. Today's Ron Show for the week, actually. Hey, we do air a weekend version of this show, which you can hear Saturday and Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. at Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Last weekend, I gave you a bonus episode altogether because John Ossoff's town hall. I should be careful with that sort of Freudian slip, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene held the rally and dragged out anybody who had unscripted questions. John Ossoff, by the way, took all the unscripted questions and heat from fired CDC officials, the fired but fighting folks, those who want to see Democrats file articles of impeachment. By the way, there was an article of impeachment filed, I think, earlier this week, and Donald Trump was up late night on social media grousing about that. I mean, again, the reality is Democrats do not control the House. They do not control the Senate. Articles of impeachment will go nowhere because the math ain't mathin'. Anyway, there was a bonus episode last week. That's what I'm saying. These sporadic marches and protests that keep popping up, they're not coming from the Democratic Party. I think it's just fair to point that out. They're not coming from the Democratic Party. There was a whole slate of protests held yesterday. You had the Savannah City Hall March. You had the State Capitol rally, the Fayette County Courthouse rally, the Cumming Forsyth Administration Building rally. There was a rally in Griffin, Georgia, Gainesville, and Athens. There's even Star Wars fans, a May the 4th event happening in Gwinnett County. It's all seemingly very organic. And as a matter of fact, joining me to discuss the organic nature of these protests that we are seeing popping up and springing up, hundreds taking to the streets in Atlanta on a workday, 5051 Georgia Vice Chair, Bree Boyd. First of all, tell us a little bit about what 5051 is, because I'm trying to set the table. This is not something that the Democratic Party is stirring up. This is a very organic. I'm not seeing names in this group that I recognize. These are not party officials. These are not, your run-of-the-mill organizers that we have seen before. This is springing up from people unexpecting, I think, of even themselves being swept up in a movement. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And being swept up is exactly how I would describe it. We are all really new to the activist scene. We're nonpartisan, of course. We've got people from all political walks of life, people who have never thought they would even care about politics too, standing up and taking to the streets and getting involved and becoming volunteers with us. We're entirely community driven, which is so inspiring. We're hoping to continue to encourage anybody to be able to get involved in their community in any capacity. It doesn't have to just be taking to the streets. We're hoping to reimagine community and what it can do for us. And then we're at some point going to decide how that will affect the political landscape as well.
I don't know how far you've kept an eye on, I guess, political culture in this country, but this feels so much like Occupy Wall Street, but more spread out than Occupy actually was, obviously, because they were occupying Wall Street or a bark in Wall Street. And I remember back in that time, in the 2014 era, 23, I thought it was a fool's errand for then the leader of this country, President Barack Obama and his party, to ignore Occupy Wall Street, to not fully embrace it. And then Bernie Sanders kind of got caught up in that movement and was sort of trying to buck the system in a way similar to what Donald Trump was doing on his side of the aisle. And the Democrats snuffed it out and really never fully embraced it. I cautioned them against, trying to do the same now. But this feels a little bit like Occupy in that these are just average, ordinary Americans who have come to realize, hey, the system ain't working for them already as it is, but destroying it and making it less amenable to our way of life is certainly not tenable as well. Do you see any parallels to this?
Yeah, so a lot of people have said that, and I don't entirely disagree. But I do think that there is a difference. We do have a lot of local representatives and even local state senators that have been supporting us along the way. We've got a number of them that have been with us, protesting with us since the beginning. So, and I don't know if you're wanting me to name any names or anything.
I don't
but,
care. Yeah, it's their business. Go right ahead.
Maybe at our next chat, I'll give you the rundown of all of our friends. But I want to keep it now about like what 5051 is and what we're doing, and even I want to talk a little bit about the protest yesterday too. But in regards to whether or not we are gonna follow in the footsteps of Occupy, we're working to do things a little bit differently. We are organizing a little bit differently as well.
Yeah.
I think that we have the capacity to continue for longevity. We're trying to make our movement very sustainable too. We're structuring 5051 Georgia, and I can only speak for 5051 Georgia, not our national movement, which has some growing pains that they're going through separately. But Georgia's, we're structuring in a way that we're not going to burn out, and they can't deny us because we're everywhere. We're all over the state of Georgia. So, and we're encouraging and training people in local communities to organize on their own too. So, creating toolkits for them to have access to, who, if they're wanting to get out and organize, here's the how-to. Here's how to have access to us if you have questions. Here's how to do it in a safe way. We do protest marshal and street medic trainings. They're very basic at this point, because everything's been so fast. But we are, again, really creating a model that this is something that is sustainable and accessible. And accessibility, as you know, is a problem that has, and that it's a huge problem in politics in general. Mm-hmm. Our politicians we put them on a pedestal and we treat them kind of a little bit like celebrities, and that they're not regular people.
Well,
they're people in our communities.
But they've also codified it so that you can't protest near federal offices. You can't protest near Congress people or senators. You can't get near the president, obviously, to protest. I mean, his cavalcade's not, his motorcade's not going to see this sort of stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene literally drags protesters out from her town hall.
One of them was ours.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So they're making it difficult. So I think the accessibility part is what's really important. And what you guys are doing, I find fascinating. You're not like just trying to funnel everyone to one location to get a gaudy picture of helicopters or drones overhead getting photos of a massive crowd. You're taking smaller crowds everywhere.
Yeah, and here's the deal about optics. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
We are not interested in playing the game. Like, we're just creating a new game.
Yeah.
We're just gonna. We believe in focusing on the micro. Focusing on the little things they haven't traditionally been paying attention to. Mm-hmm. The little people. That's not. It's us. We are the people. And it matters.
Well, I'm sitting here looking at like just your slate of stuff this weekend. I mean, again, everywhere. I see Macon, I see Atlanta, I see Forsyth Park.
Augusta's been big.
Yeah, Roswell City Hall. That's a pretty conservative area. Again, the Fayette County Courthouse, downtown Woodstock. Again, another conservative area. You guys are taking this everywhere, and that's just tomorrow. That's just Saturday.
Yes. Yeah, and we I wanted to note that we are really encouraging the doors to be open for, again, we're nonpartisan. We 5051 Georgia, our goal is to mobilize the people and make the government follow the law. We want to hold corrupt officials accountable. We want to support efforts to revitalize our communities and at some point reform Congress. We want to be open for reformed Trump supporters, reformed conservatives, and also, Democrats who feel they have been heard too, because it's all of us. Yeah. We've all not been listened to. The system hasn't been working for anybody. And how do we come together? And how do we decide to tell the system what it needs to be and what it needs to look like? And how those officials who work for us perform in it.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I take this back to like some of the things that we've addressed here in the city of Atlanta, the Stop Cop City movement. Those folks were not heard. The Amsterdam Walk community, those folks were not heard. These are concerns at locally elected Democrats as well that do not seem to be paying attention to their constituents. So there's room for that sort of grousing as well. When you mentioned being nonpartisan, I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say. Democrats don't have their hands clean at the local, state, or federal level as well, and dissatisfaction should be heard by all of them.
I agree, and I believe in clear and direct communication, and I think that one of the big problems with how Democrats handle things is they first of all, Republicans will lie to your face, and Democrats will just brush things under the rug. And then you're left the conversation feeling like, well, that wasn't productive at all.
Yeah.
So like there are going to be problems along the way, and there are going to be people who feel unheard or people who get, missed. And even in our movement as an organizer, it's been difficult to keep up with everybody. Right.
Right.
There's because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of citizens, and there are a lot of people who are excited to get involved. But I think, again, just clearly and directly stating like, oh, that one was a mistake. How can we fix that? How can we make that better is really important. That not just with the big things, the small things too, because at the end of the day, we have to remember like these are humans that we're dealing with, and how we repair like relationships is important, and we can't just pretend like that problem or the thing that we ignored or the thing that we like really messed up on didn't happen.
Right. That is so important and just not heard at all in political confines. State GOP Chair Josh McCoon called yesterday's protests rent a mob. Your reaction to something being said like that, so dismissive.
Yeah, and there was one news outlet that said there were many dozens of protesters out at the Capitol today. So we know what they're doing, and it's okay. However they want to talk about it, the pictures will show. And here's the deal about us being in everybody's community and being accessible is people will literally be driving in their own cities knowing that that's a lie.
Yeah.
Because they can see it.
And that's a powerful message in and of itself. Just, the quiet admission that, well, you heard what he said, but we're not, again, you guys aren't, I'm not seeing, and I know you said that, you've got politicians that are enjoining and all, but I'm not seeing this from the usual suspects. I'm not seeing this from like a Bernie Sanders led movement or anything. Like this is so organic. It's a little mystifying, and I don't think the media even knows how to cover you guys. I think that's part of the problem. Again, they're looking for the huge overhead drone footage of 50,000 people.
We keep sending out press releases, so I don't understand how they don't know how to cover us. Like they just have to contact us.
Yeah, because again, most for cable news, local news, it's a visual medium, and they want to see something visual.
Sure, yeah. I mean, but again, what is happening right now is we need to continue to practice changing the way things have been done, changing some of the programming. Yeah. Like the media's been programmed too.
You're right. 1,000%. That's part of it. How do folks get involved if they haven't already? Where can they go? Where's the information?
FIFTY.ONE.
Oh yeah, here it is. 50/50 spelled out. FIFTY.1. Cool. Bree Boyd, Vice Chair with the Georgia chapter of 50/51. You got a full weekend, so I'm going to let you get right to it. Thanks for joining the Ron Show today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time.
I'll make sure I include that link in the show notes with all the other links from today's show at ronshowatl.com. This show airs weekdays, 9 a.m., 5 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Weekends, we do have a weekend edition, Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. at Progressive Voices via TuneIn or on their app. Comments, questions, call the show 404-919-2725, ron@ronshowatl.com. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.